This streams live and may discuss topics including mental health, addiction, depression, its treatment and other similar subjects that can be triggering or worrying to some people. If you may be negatively affected by this or you're at all uncomfortable with the subjects, please switch away now. You can always come back to watch it at another time. This show is also not suitable for children. As always, parental guidance should be applied.
Inside the temple, yeah. Mr. Wiggly, I push it, yo. Hey, step inside, I give thanks and the highest praise. Ground myself to my earth, connect out the space.
Well, hello there. Welcome to Wednesday evening serious talk about serious stuff with our resident serious person, Oliver Gould. Hopefully you're all reasonably well tonight. I know quite a few of you are probably over from Gaz's stream, which I think is still running, but that's absolutely fine. Flip between the two, see how you're all doing. Hopefully you can all hear me as well. I think everything is operating as it should be. Hello to everyone in the chat. Hello to David Serchek. Thanks for being the first. To Paul Artola. Keith in Watford, hello to you. Grey One FPV, good to see you again. Keith in Watford. Ollie, who will be along later. Dr. Vimto, hello to you. And it's really good to see you all. So hopefully, I mean, we had a couple of interesting weeks. We had a week off and we had a panic attack week where the wonderful Kent Spong popped in and shared with us some outstanding kind of, well, I say outstanding is one word for it, some quite incredible panic attack stories and experiences that he had. So that was pretty amazing. Good job. I'm working loud and clear as well. Thank you, Dr. Vimto. But Ollie, it's good to know that he is back among us. It was a strange show, the last one that we did, where Ollie wasn't quite kind of prepared for it. Everything fired off. He had to take a deep breath and disappear for a while. So it's good to still be going and to have him with us. And I better introduce him without further ado. Hello to you, Mr. Oliver Gould. How are you doing, sir?
Better than you, Mr. Wiggly.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
All good.
Oh, dear.
How are you feeling after the last one?
Oh, mate. Well, Oblivion Underground happened, and that went well. But because it was a massive rave in Manchester, there was a sweatbox, I got COVID. So I've now been ill all week. I didn't sleep very well last night. But yeah, so it's been a bit of a turbulent 7 days, to be fair. Well, 2 weeks really, yeah. Oh dear.
Paul Artola says he didn't hear any news stories about chaos and calamity from last week, so presumed everything went fine. I think that's quite a presumption, though. To be honest, it sounds like you had to work your bollocks off, basically.
Well, I'll take. So this story sums the whole thing up quite nicely. So after I woke up Saturday, I woke up at 9 o'clock. Packed the studio down, put it in a van, took it to Manchester. There was loads of traffic. We were late, so I had 2 hours to set up, and then did the whole night, no sleep. Packed down, went to the hotel room, had a bit of a rest, and then I was sat on a box outside the hotel waiting for a van to come along, and a homeless guy came up to me and went, "Oh, you live in a box as well, do you?" Honestly, that happened. Yeah.
Oh my word!
I think just that moment in Manchester sums it up.
Oh, that's brilliant. This is you on the app as well, isn't it?
That was on the other side of it. Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
Oh mate, did you have any time to enjoy the thing or?
No, not at all. Really, it was a war from start to finish, and it finished, and I'm over it, and I've done it, which is nice. But yeah, it was savage. And it won't happen for another year. So, but yeah, it was a savage week. It was a savage week, and then obviously the podcast before. You know, I didn't think it was happening, and then I had all of that going on, and loads of other stuff going on, and then I got hit by a massive panic attack, and I've never watched myself actually have a panic attack before, because I've watched it back, and it was quite entertaining to say the least. But I had no idea how much it impeded my speech and how vacant you sounded. So it was really interesting. But
it was weird because I wasn't really sure what to do because I wanted you to carry on because it was actually what we're meant to be talking about, I guess. Yeah. But equally, I didn't want it to all end in with you and a puddle on the floor. So it was like not quite sure. So it's best that you jumped out when you did.
Well, I mean, when I jumped out, I was just I was sort of first hand worried about how people would perceive it, and what if people that want to use me for work see this? And it was
that's a good point.
There was the whole ending of that, the tail end of that panic attack was basically worrying about that. And then I was close to saying, Dom, can you can we remove that do you know what I mean, that podcast? And then I watched it back. I thought, I'll calm down, I'll watch back, I'll just try and take control of the situation. I think it turned out useful, and the parts with Kent was fucking amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've known Kent for a while. Well, first off, just to finish off on your stuff. I mean, it was. It was weird, and thank you, because it didn't even occur to me. Do you know what? Afterwards, to take it down, and that's weird. I should have thought. Actually, do you know what? I automatically assume, because you're very open about this stuff and you've kind of specifically said, I don't care what people think about me, blah, blah, blah. It never even occurred to me that, like, should this even be live? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This person, and which is a wrong thing to assume. It's taking everything at its kind of face value, looking at it from a kind of, wow, this is really interesting. Let's see how far this is going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's weird to look at it back and then to think, oh my, actually, do you know what? Yeah, if that was me, I'd be like, wait a minute, we can't keep this public. And you should have thought twice about not switching off earlier on in some way.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it would. That was just the panic attack beating me. That was just the insecurities beating me at that time. And when I sort of rationalized it and was in my right mind, it was like, no, it needs to stay up, because we're talking about being open and we're talking about putting it out there, and I think that was 100% putting it out there.
It was.
So it's one of those things, and I'm happy it happened. It was annoying, but I'm also noticing that the more I'm doing this show, the more things I'm opening up, and actually the more susceptible I am to this since I've started doing this show, which kind of highlights the reason why I wanted to do this, is that I probably need to be talking about this and being more aware of myself. So
I guess there are ways to do that, and there are ways to do that. I mean, as half God, half beast says, good on you, Oliver. I mean, there are easier ways perhaps to talk about it than sticking yourself live on the internet. But it's a brilliant way of doing it, and I totally admire. And
there's also harder ways to do it, and that's ignore it. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a happy medium in the end.
Yes, fair enough. Somewhere in the middle.
But I'm go on, carry on. Sorry, carry on.
No, please do.
Well, no. So I'm just saying, I'm looking forward to getting back to doing this every week, and I'm also looking forward to sort of reading the comments back and seeing how people cope with this sort of thing, because I have picked up a few tips and I've picked up a few things from other people that I hadn't quite thought about. So the resource of the chat is a wonderful thing, and hopefully we can really get on the promotion for this, and get some people in the chat and really get it moving over the next few months, because I think it could grow, and I think we could really do some good, and I think we have done some good, really, based on the feedback I was getting from the past shows.
Yeah, we're as guilty as any for not being consistent, I guess, for various reasons. And also, if there are people in the chat that can share it and talk about it and just get used to more consistent kind of getting our numbers up, so we know that it is going to happen on a Monday, because we've cancelled a few and all that kind of stuff. So, but we really appreciate everyone in the chat who's being a part of this, and the lurkers and the people watching afterwards. If you're able to share it with anyone that you think might help or could contribute as well, that would be amazing. Thank you. David Ramirez was saying he learnt a lot about panic attacks last week. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say about Kent, who, if you didn't see last week's, Oliver kicked off with a panic attack and didn't kind of make it, so dropped off and then thought, okay, actually, I can't do it. And Kent, we're about to close the show, and Kent Spong, who many of you will be aware of, works in music and repairs amazing synths and stuff, said, I'll come in and talk about panic attacks. So I'm aware, because I know Kent reasonably well. I've met him in real life once, and I've chatted to him online a lot, that he was agoraphobic, so he doesn't leave the house. And he will get into the car a little bit, but, basically, and he's been like that for a long time, didn't know how long. And basically, it was amazing. He talked us through the whole thing, which was when he was much younger, he would get panic attacks, which resulted in him not wanting to go out, because he was so then worried about having a panic attack. So you're panicking about panicking. And it had been like that for 40 years, and he's just got used to it,
That's mad. That is mad.
For it to be so all-consuming, he's a super clever, lovely, social, very funny, entertaining, brilliant, and his wife is amazing. They got three dogs, I think, at the moment. A nice house, he works, but people just have to go to him to work, and he's literally got used to it. And I didn't realize it was for that long, and purely panic attacks. So you can see how incredible the effect is, and kind of like back then there wasn't. I mean, they did. You can see the podcast. They gave him some treatment. Nothing worked. They didn't really take him that seriously. I think there was a little bit of, pull yourself together kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it's destroyed his life, because he has a really good life, but it's completely changed his ability to socialise outside the house and go out, which is just amazing. Absolutely,
it is amazing.
Shocking.
What interests me most about this sort of thing, and I've done no research into it at all, but agoraphobia, is this a recent thing in society, or is it something that's cropped up in the last 30, 40 years? Which would be, I don't know if anybody can Google that whilst they're watching.
Yeah.
But,
I've known about agoraphobia for longer than I've known about, say, manic depression or, it was a thing. Because it manifests, it's very obvious. If you can't go out the house,
yeah,
it's the thing, whereas you can maybe hide some of the other stuff. I'm just looking it up now. But, yeah, and that was purely a worry about potentially having a panic attack, which is obviously what we watched you go through. And it really shows you how mind changing and life changing that kind of stuff is. Just the worry that you might.
I think but by the time I logged onto the stream, I was sort of post panic attack, and I was actually on the sort of it kind of it blows you out a little bit, and you got no energy, and you can't think, and you can't vocalize what you want to say. You not only that, but you've got so many thoughts rushing through at that time that it really does sort of put a block on any sort of external, anything external, basically, having conversations, and it's really odd. And I haven't had one in such a long time, and I had one at home, but with the prospect of the podcast coming up, I think it heightened it a little bit, which is interesting for me anyway, especially doing this. But it's highlighted definitely a few things in my life that I need to start to maybe take it a little bit easier. And I need to, be more present with my feelings a little bit, because, I was definitely that week in the trenches, battling through these situations of not having enough time, an unknown of things not potentially working when we go to Manchester, and so it was quite a stressful period.
And that was a lot. That was a lot on your head at that time, which was out of your control, basically.
Well, yeah. And I was up there doing it myself as well. Normally we'll go up in a crew of two. So, it was, if something goes wrong, that's it. You're there by yourself. You're setting up by yourself. You're packing down by yourself. And you've got $7.5 grand worth of equipment with you. If you forget. So it's pretty stressful. But
agoraphobia was first coined in 1871 by a
German
psychologist, Frederick Otto Westphal. So it was a thing, I think, throughout the 1900s rather than just a book from that point on. So and it's interesting because agoraphobia in my head, until speaking to Kent about it, is a weird one. It's like, why would someone be afraid of going out? Are they painfully shy? Are they don't like crowded spaces? All sorts of things would make someone want to live. I don't mind going out, but I much prefer being inside. And I'm not big in busy spaces. I'm quite outgoing, but I'd much prefer kind of my own company or my own insular world in a lot of ways, or my family world. But now I realise if you're just simply worried that you are going to panic, it's obvious. Whatever.
I don't know. I suffered with sort of mild agoraphobia for a while in my 20s when I was on the drugs quite heavily, and I used the drugs to deal with those. But I know when I used to go out sober, I'd have this massive sort of extrasensory overload. So I lived in the centre of Bristol, so I'd leave and I'd have this massive overload, and it was bright, and there was all these things going round, and loads of stuff going on, cars. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And it was just a lot to take in. And obviously I think there was a lot of fear from people either hurting you or thinking you were going to be attacked, or there's a lot of dangers out there. And it's interesting to sort of to think, to see the world like that, especially when you mirror it with somebody that's depressed.
Yes.
Because it is that world that you're looking for all the horrible stuff, and you're trying to avoid all the horrible stuff, and outside is the one place where you are exposed because there's no bed. If something goes wrong, if you have a panic attack, where can you go? You can't go anywhere, and you're kind of, I suppose, you're just trying to grasp onto any sort of lifeline you've got, which really there aren't any unless you're driving, or if you have a panic attack when you're driving. Where are you going to pull over if you're on the motorway?
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables to really cause that.
Kent was saying he's okay in a car, but it needs to be about 2 minutes. That's about it. He needs to know he can turn around if he had a panic attack and get home without having to stop, if you see what I mean. And it's amazing. It really is amazing. And also the other thing he said was that he's had panic attacks on stream. He does a kind of long stream with his mates, a bit like a pub evening session sometimes, and people can just call up. So people will pop up and just chat and talk about music and that kind of stuff. And he said he's had them on stream, but he's managed to hide them, which I think is incredible, because I've watched that stream. I wouldn't know if he was or not, but he does go quiet occasionally. So his coping mechanisms have kind of kicked in and gone, right, what I need to do now is look over, switch off, whatever it is. I don't know what that mechanism is, but and it's just part of life. It's almost like he'd be surprised to talk about it because it's just normal. And for a large period of time in the early days, I think it was normal to him because he didn't really know that things weren't meant to work like that.
I would really love to have do this with Kent and actually ask him questions based on my experiences, and see if there are any things that link up between us, and see if there are any of the questions I have about it are actually relevant to his situation. And I think it'd be. If he's willing to do that, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure how. How. What's the word? I'm not sure how much he'd want to be prodded, and how deep he'd want to go. But
let's ask. Let's see if we can get him on, because having come on and talked very openly about it, I'm sure he would want to come on. I can't speak for him, but absolutely.
Because with Kent, sort of, because I'd call that extreme agoraphobia. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's in a support group where there are some real extreme agoraphobics that only stay in a cupboard. That is a joke. I'm not. But but all jokes aside, I don't know if he would be classed as an extreme agoraphobic. And
I think 40 years is long enough to be extreme anything, isn't it? Just for the length of time, I would say. That's just going, I'm not going to get this cured. I live with it.
But from my point of view, there's a lot of people that have been in the chat that struggle to go out, and that really have that issue with going out. They've really got to force themselves to go out. So somebody like Kent, and with sort of my views of trying to help that out, and trying to work ways around that, I think it could be very useful for people that aren't necessarily agoraphobic, but are in a depressive state, and they're in that mindset where their situation is the worst ever. Nobody's suffering like that, and to have somebody like Kent be able to explain it would maybe give them the power to think, well, look how much Kent struggled. Look at Kent's situation. Maybe it is a little bit easier for me to leave the house.
Yeah.
Based on his experiences, and maybe he can highlight things that maybe we wouldn't be able to help these people that have said they're actively going to start going out. Maybe
totally. I will ask him. I'm sure he'd love to come on. Fingers crossed. There's a whole bunch of. We'll make that for a show or two down the road. There's a whole bunch of chat that we're missing out. First, our lovely friend Pierre the Esclan hates going outside, which is interesting for someone.
No, that's just because he's lazy. Sorry,
he generally
Mark.
is outgoing.
No, he is.
Dr. Vimto said, agoraphobia's been around a long time. First I knew of it from the UK Shameless series. Actually, that's true. There was someone in Shameless with it. This is dating back the chat for a good 5 minutes. Grey One FPV, more and more these days going out becomes increasingly harder. And let me just whiz down. There's a counsellor here. Hey, Oliver, Zone Magazine. So hello to you. Thank you very much for joining. Perhaps you can guide us.
Oh, Zone Magazine. I think I was in Zone Magazine a while ago. Yeah. Zone Magazine. Yeah, I was in Zone Magazine. I think last year or the year before.
Cool.
One of the podcasts I did. We had a page spread. I think we did anyway. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Long time ago.
It was a while ago.
The word agoraphobia literally means fear of agora, which is Greek for marketplace. Yeah, I can understand.
Now that fucking makes sense, doesn't it?
The minute you say market, you think,
yeah.
Do you know
God, yeah. No thanks.
Yeah,
no
completely. I went to Morocco. The zouk, is it called the market? It's called the zouk.
Yeah.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. It's the market of all markets.
I mean, I was before this podcast. I was literally just talking Melissa out from going into the centre of Bristol Saturday for that reason. We got a wedding. We're going to a wedding in a couple of weeks, and I've got my suit jacket, but I need to find some trousers, and we've got to go into. I was like, please, can we go Sunday? Please.
I used to have a Saturday job in the centre of Bristol in a sports shop, which used to be called Olympus Sports, but I don't know what it's called now there, and that was bad.
Sports Direct, isn't it? I think
probably is now. Yeah. Selling trainers and stuff. That's not a good job to have. It's very smelly.
Yeah, I bet.
Selling
Yeah,
trainers. Jean says, I like the outdoors, but not the crowds. Yeah, totally. Give me a big Hills Are Alive style field, and I'll be very, very happy. David Serchek, I know the feeling of overload. And Grey One says, ironically, outside can feel the most isolating. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Paul Artola says beta blockers, which brings us on to antidepressants and things in general. I know they're prescribed for panic attacks. I don't have any experience about.
I mean, Valium is a panic attack medicine, I think, isn't it?
Oh, okay. I should think that cures most things, doesn't it? It kind of takes the edge off in general.
Yeah, honestly does. Yeah, it honestly does.
So everything. You see, you're in a funny mood. Whatever. Zone Magazine had to stop DJing because of panic attacks. I wonder who from Zone Magazine this is.
I think I know who that is.
Okay.
I think I know who that is. How you doing, bud? You all right?
John Simpson, I'm having to deal with enormous family issues. I'm so sorry. Death of my mother after years caring for her now. My brother's been diagnosed with bladder and prostate cancer. Oh, man.
That's terrible.
I'm now becoming agoraphobic after the pandemic.
So this is really interesting because I lost my mum when I was 22, and that was really the pivotal part of when I started to downfall. And I spent, those 10 years were to do with not dealing with my mother's death and using drugs to sort of cover that up. And, my feelings surrounding that, there were a lot of traumas beforehand which led me to that. But my mother's death and the lead up to my mother's death, she was dying for about 4 years, were what really put me in that position. So the person who's just commented there, you really need to get bereavement counselling. I only started dealing with that when I got counselling and when I was able to process that, and especially with your brother now, so I can't say enough how much of a how much of a decent tool that was with dealing with my own mother's passing. So yeah, that would be, that's personal experience, and it works. So
Wow.
please get that.
I'm so sorry, John. If you wouldn't reach out just for friendship or whatever, please do. It should goes without saying neither me or Ollie are trained in any way in any of these things. So we're just speaking. Well, basically, we're speaking from Ollie's experience. So don't take any of our advice as medical advice whatsoever. However, yeah, there's something about, I don't know as well if it's something about British, English, UK-based people about death. There is no mandatory mourning period and all this kind of stuff. And actually, mourning periods are really important. The idea of having a proper period of time to deal with this rather than to kind of just go to the funeral, forget about it or whatever, specifically if it's for family issues as well. And I think in some ways bereavement counselling is often seen as an unnecessary, unimportant thing. I don't know whether we're trained or we were brought up to be like we can deal with that kind of stuff. I'm really pleased you said what you said, because it works, obviously.
I think that the issue with bereavement counselling and the issue with going to bereavement counselling is, especially when someone's died that's close to you, it's very painful to talk about it. And you don't really, you're not really able to speak to people about it anyway. And I remember when my mum died, I was in work, and it was really odd because I called my mum every day. Like every day I called my mum from work at the same time, and we'd have a little natter just before my fag break. And one day she didn't answer, and I was like, she's dead. She died. I know she's died. And before I even found out, I told work, my mum's died. I'm going home. And I didn't find out until 5 o'clock that day, but I just knew because she always picked up the phone regardless, and I just knew that was it. And when work said, do you want some time off? How much do you think you need? And I was like, well, 2 months. That was that was naturally how much I felt. But they were talking about a couple of days. But that's how it was back in sort of 2002.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I mean? And you're just at that age. My sister was 4 years younger. My brother's 2 years younger than me. And my sister was living with my mother at the time, so it was really devastating for her. But there was no resource to talk about it with anybody. And obviously the first thing I did was just get absolutely out of my face. Called my mate up, get the coke, get the booze. This has happened. I need to forget about it. And it was basically just from that point. But the bereavement counselling is so necessary because we don't really have people we can talk to. And if you were like me back then when that happened, when I spoke to people, I didn't think they were interested anyway. Which they would, they cared about me.
Yeah.
But they weren't interested. And, a counsellor is paid to be interested and is paid to talk you through it. And they're invested. You can even get free counselling through the NHS. But they're invested for the time you've got them to help you through it and get you through it. They've got experience in it, and they're able to talk to you. They're able to pull out what you need to pull out, and they're able to help you process it, because the hardest thing's processing it, because with pain, what we do is we tend to push it down and we don't deal with it.
Yeah.
And then anxiety comes from that. And then panic attacks come from that. And then you're scared to go out. And then you're agoraphobic. And then your brother gets ill. And then you're like, shit, I got to deal with it again. Then you've got double anxiety, double agoraphobia, double pain. And it's not your fault. But nobody's telling you to get counselling.
No, and it's obviously okay to feel that way as well. This is not stuff that you do have to deal with on your own. Yeah, John, I'm so sorry. I mean, the thing is that you haven't actually had a chance to kind of take a breath here, have you? Because you've been obviously caring for your mum for ages, and now that's obviously you've got to deal with her passing, and now your brother's obviously now going to go into treatment, and you're going to be caring for him. So I'm not surprised it feels like you can't take on the world and leave the house and all the rest of it. But
well, I mean, not only that, but especially if you've been caring for somebody for that amount of time, there's always going to be a thought in the back of your mind that it's probably better that they do pass soon, especially if it was an illness that's painful. I remember my mother was in a lot of pain, and there were times when I went up there and she was on so much morphine that she didn't even recognise who I was.
Oh my word!
So there's a lot of trauma that happens, and there's a lot of feelings that you can't deal with, and thinking to yourself, the sooner she dies, the better. And not just for her, but for everybody, because everybody's in pain, and they can kind of put an end to it. You know, so there's also a lot of guilt associated in my experience with that. And there's also a lot of, you know, when's it going to happen? You kind of want, I don't want it to happen soon, but it kind of has to happen soon, because we're just stuck, you know, you're just hanging there, you know, and John's now hanging there with his brother as well, you know, so, you know, the only way that you can really process that is by speaking to somebody that's impartial in your life, and you can really open up with, you know, I mean, once you get used to it, you know, there's no embarrassment. When I did rehab, we were forced to talk about all the shitty stuff we'd done and the people we'd hurt, and they got us speaking in a group, and they got us open about everything that had happened, and they made us not embarrassed about it. And then one of the end sections was all of the people that you said you'd hurt and you'd done emotional damage to from your actions and your addiction. They came in, and then you sat in the middle of the room, knee to knee, and you expressed yourself to them, and they expressed themselves back to you, and it was really healing. And you know, I just can't talk about how powerful that, you know, counselling and therapy really is.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds amazing, actually. I'm so sorry about your mum as well. And how long ago was that you
I was
went through all of
22.
that?
I'm 40 now, so we're talking.
Wow, 18
Yeah,
years
long
ago.
time ago. Yeah, long time ago. You know, and actually, she died in September. So you know, this time of year for me is also hard, because you know, I've still got a lot of unresolved things. You know, because I was out of my face for the last part of her life. So, you know, so I've still got a lot of guilt associated with that. You know, and I probably do need to go and get some more therapy at some point, to be fair, and just talk through all of these feelings now. You know, I've really, you know, now I've dealt with everything, and now I've been through it all, and now I can process it properly. You know, so yeah.
And where do you go to for that? Do you go to your GP and say, right, I need to talk something through? Or
Yeah, I just think you just go to your GP, and if you've got enough money, you pay for it. The GP's the harder route, obviously, but you can pay for it. There's a number of really good resources that came about in lockdown, where you can actually pay for video chats with therapists.
Yeah, I saw some of that, actually. Yes. That's an interesting idea, which would suit the agoraphobics as well.
Well, I think it suit everybody as well, because it's not overly expensive, and you know, you can do it whenever it suits you, and you know, I think you are most comfortable at home. I mean, I've never done one, so I can't weigh up how uncomfortable it is being in one of those clinical rooms and talking, or being at home. But you know, I think they both have their advantages, and I definitely think it's an easy way to interview therapists or counsellors, because you know, you need to get on with them.
Yeah, totally. And it's a strange environment as well. You know, if you're literally walking in, you've got an hour with someone or half an hour with someone, the first session or whatever, it's going to take you a few sessions just to get to know if you do like them, or if you do get on, or if they do understand. I can imagine it must be to open up must be pretty hard.
Well, I mean, look. Sometimes you just don't get on with people. It just happens in life, doesn't it? Sometimes some people are just pricks, and they're not pricks, but you think they're a prick. You're never going to get on with them, and that's it. And obviously, these people can crop up with in therapy and counselling, you know. And I think the live, or the sort of the Zoom meetings can help you sort of interview them and find the right person for you, because when you find them, you'll find them. I did my therapy in rehab, so I was in that area. We only had one therapist, but luckily I got on with him, and he was really good. And then, you know, I've still got his contact, and I've been meaning to sort of get back in touch with them and get some more sessions in the last sort of 3 to 4 years. So, you know, this is probably going to spur me on to do it again and get in contact with that person.
What does it cost, out of interest, if you're going privately like that? Do you know?
Oh, I think it can be quite expensive. I think it can be about 50 quid an hour, to be fair.
Okay.
But, you know, over a month, sorry, that's not much, really.
Yeah, and to be honest, £50 an hour, you know, it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. Just to rewind very slightly, Zone magazine was saying that, obviously mentioned, had stopped DJing because of panic attacks, then had lots of therapy and help, and then became a counsellor. So that's kind of where that one came from. But was stuck for 6 months at home and couldn't leave. And his real name is in the chat if you want to check it out. Half God, half beast. This was the man I was been calling half God, half biscuit for his entire
That's a better name.
It's bizarre. It's honestly bizarre. In fact, it was Kent's stream when he was on. He said, "Is there any reason you're calling him half god, half biscuit?" No, don't know why. The lockdowns have left me struggling to go out. Yeah, I think lockdown has that on a lot of people. And Pierre the Acid Clown, I don't think you get over agoraphobia. You just kind of learn to deal with it. Well, certainly in Kent's experience.
See now.
Keith,
Before you move on, sorry. So
yeah,
Mark's a very good example of this, and if we could get Mark to talk about his coping strategies, because he is actually quite agoraphobic. As much as I joke about him being lazy, he's lazy as well. Well, he is lazy as well, but he's also agoraphobic. And sorry, Mark. Sorry, I have to give a little dig, don't I? What did he say about me in this podcast? Not one of his last shows. It's payback time. But no, but he goes out and gigs, and he forces himself to go out. So if Mark would be able to come and talk about this as well, he'd have some crazy good coping strategies, because he's locked into this. He's locked in. He really suffers with depression, and he really struggles with it. And he manages to get himself up every day, and he manages to do something, and he manages to do his live stream every week, and he manages to go and do the gigs, and he manages to go and rehearse. And, he's obviously put things in place where there's a payoff from doing something he likes. Yeah. And I think that's very strong. And I think using that mindset to sort of overcome that is a very powerful tool. And, I think we could use this podcast to get as many people to talk about how they cope and how they deal with it, because I'm not sure how many different types of person there are. I think there's quite a few personality types, 12 or something, I think maybe. And if we could chat to one of those 12 personality types on their coping mechanisms around depression, then it could be a really powerful resource. Yeah,
that would be amazing. I mean, just as an aside with Mark, he's an inspiration to me, and I'm sure an inspiration to many 100%. People in the chat as well. So
he's an inspiration to me. I wouldn't admit this on any other podcast, but he really is.
He's an inspiring guy. I've often said there's a couple of people actually. Mark's in that bracket that sometimes I go, if I'm feeling down or I feel like I go, well, hang on, what would they do? There's a guy that I've known for years and years and years that I grew up with who has been through loads of crap, but is always positive generally, and outwardly anyway. And I've often gone, I've got in the lift if I've had to go and do some proper work or something, and it's like, what would he do? And then you're at the top of the list with the smile and, okay, let's just get this done. You know what I mean? Because it's not that bad. And Mark's got that attitude as well, which I think affects a lot of people in a good way. So it'd be great if you want to come on, Mark. And also anyone in the chat, if they do want to come on, clearly we're not going to put you under any pressure, and you can always press the off button or just say, I'd rather not talk about that, thank you. And it's
but not only that, amazing. You can speak to us in the lead up saying, I don't want to speak about this. Can we stay away from this subject, that subject? But what I do want to talk about is this, and you could just go and do it, because we are about helping people. We are about sharing this knowledge. So I know we keep saying this, but I still feel we're in the infancy of this podcast, and I think setting up our objectives and what we want to do and how we want to go about it is going to be key to really making this a good resource for people.
Totally. It's got to find its way. I think every time you do something new, whether it's a hobby, a business or whatever, you often find that your end result has gone this kind of meandering path, but you'd never have got there unless you started it, but it finds its feet naturally.
It will. I mean, Mark's up for talking.
Great.
So, mean, I'm up for dialing that in for next week if Mark can do it.
Perfect. That would be amazing. I'm way behind in the chat again, so thank you for that, Mark. That would be absolutely amazing. I wanted to pick up a comment from Matt Evans. I believe once you understand that mental health issues are lifelong, you can begin to incorporate them into your life. Accept them as you do any other part of yourself.
That's so true. That's unbelievably true, because these aspects of your life, and especially mine, they are me, and they are part of me, and they are parts of me that if allowed to get out of control will work against me. But there are also parts of me that I utilize. And there are also parts of me that without those I wouldn't be as empathetic, and I wouldn't be able to do things like this, and I wouldn't want to help people, even though my helping people originally came from using it to ignore my own issues and not helping myself. these are still all parts of you that will make you a better person, and you can utilize them, and it's with you for all your life. I'll always have mental health issues. I'll always struggle, but I've learned to live with that struggle, and everybody can. So it takes me back. So when we were a lot younger, I had a group of friends, and we were all incredibly hurt people. And we were all in bands, we were all doing music. We all had, we all had opportunities to do things. And we were all helping each other. But we were all sabotaging ourselves at the same time.
Wow.
And we were all there. We were all fucking absolutely dedicated to propping each other up. When one of us drank too much, we went on a binge on some drug, or the addiction was taking hold. We were all there to help that person. We'd pull them out. But we'd all be sat there sabotaging ourselves heavily and not looking after ourselves. And at the bands I were in, there was a band I was in, and we were all heavily destructive people. Like fucking heavily destructive. To the point where I was using heroin, the lead singer wasn't. The lead singer decided he wanted to use heroin, and we both went fucking bang. And we had some very good opportunities with that band. And a good friend of mine as well. He was also the same. I lived with him for a long time, and he was twice as destructive as me, but he wouldn't take heroin, so he teetered for a lot longer. But yeah, it's really interesting because obviously this thought came to my mind because we were talking about the elements of depression and the sort of person you are, having that being utilized well. Obviously, without that, all of the people I'm talking about, they're all still struggling, but they're all very empathetic, and I use that personally to understand the world and help people and improve my outlook. And that's just one example of these traits that we have as people with mental health. I don't like the word mental health issues because it kind of puts you in a bracket. Do you know what I mean? It puts you in the I'm this, I'm that. You're just a type of person that is susceptible to certain things. That's how I see myself.
Absolutely. And I mean, actually, there's another comment from Matt again, who just commented about coming to terms with everything and putting up with them effectively, which is echoing what you just said. I like to think that I wouldn't be here where I am now without my stuff. And I have some wonderful friends here and elsewhere, and I wouldn't have had them without all this crap. So yeah, completely. There is a positive side to it.
It is 100% true.
Very, very, very interesting. Paul Artola, coming to terms with bereavement and loss in general has been a major growth experience for me. So these are all kind of reflecting on the slightly positive side of coming to terms with, yourself and the way that you're dealing with this stuff.
I mean, acceptance is such an important thing, and acceptance is also very hard when you have a stigma of mental health issues, or you're being diagnosed with, bipolar. Putting yourself in a box is always quite a dangerous thing. But unfortunately, for the health service to categorize and deal with you, you have to have a box. Yeah, it's the whole thing about music and genre. The genre was only created to be able to sell music, wasn't it? You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, well, the new style of music is rock and roll. But how are we going to sell it with rock and roll when there's jazz and all this? How are people going to know what to buy? All right, let's give it this name and we can sell it, and then people won't buy that. Then we can promote it, and it's a similar thing, isn't it? In this life there are too many things not to have tagged, but what you kind of have to disassociate is the tag that's been put on your situation isn't you. It's just a heading to allow people in that profession to deal with your situation. And unfortunately, the perception of words and meanings, it's a very confusing thing. I mean, myself and Melissa, we've been living together for 3 years now. We'll have a discussion, and that discussion will turn into an argument because I've said a word that she perceives to mean something different than I meant it. Yeah. And then we're having this discussion, and it can get heated sometimes. And then at the end of it, we're like, well, I wasn't saying that. This is what I mean by this word. So a word that I would see is
Yeah.
maybe describing a situation could potentially be seen as being
Confrontational or something.
confrontational,
Yeah.
or these,
Dismissive or whatever.
unfortunately, these words to some people, and especially if you're sort of sensitive to things, and you
Yeah.
spent your life in school being bullied, and you're struggling with that trauma, then
Mm-hmm.
you have to go and deal with being told you have mental health issues. I'm
Yes.
mentally ill. And then
Yeah.
suddenly the bullying and the name calling is now something that professional people are doing to you.
Yes.
And you've got to live with that. And then you start telling yourself, I'm mentally ill. I've got mental health issues. I'm not well. Fucked.
Yeah. You're
You
in
know,
that
so
bracket. There's a
You're in that
special-
bracket.
It's a
Yeah.
special cupboard or whatever for you that sits you neatly in there. You're
That's
different.
what you are, but the problem is that's not what you are. That's
Yeah.
what they used to allow you to be dealt with by the services you're in. So trying to retrain your brain to not allow you to be that is quite a powerful tool as well, that I find. And actually thinking about things and going, well, no, I'm not this. This is what this is. This is what I am, and I'm many other things. But it just so happens when I walk into a doctor's surgery or I go into counselling, they're looking at me as somebody who has a mental health issue. But it's not the be all and end all of you. And then, the less power you can give that word. But you still understand that it needs to be dealt with, and this is where it's dealt with. But there are many other facets to you. You're also kind. You're also happy. You're also giving. You're also empathetic. You're also talented. You're also driven. But it's so funny that you're driven towards ill. But I'm all these other things, but I'm ill. Then
Yeah.
you go, oh, I can't go out. And I can't go out because I'm ill. I'm sad because I'm ill. No, you're sad because something bad's happened to you and you're processing it. You're not sad because you're ill. You're just in a low emotional state. When you're happy, you don't think about that. You're just happy. You don't apply that. Oh, I'm happy because I'm a good person. I'm happy because I'm trying things. I'm happy because I'm getting rewards for making steps. No, I'm sad again, and everything's on sad, and you all lump everything into sad, and then you have more sad moments. Well, you don't. It's like I see people posting all the time because I'm in a lot of techno groups. When it's 8:08 in the morning, they're like, it's 8:08 in the morning, and they post 8:08. And it's like, every time I look at the clock, it's either 8:08, 12:10, or 9:09. It's like, no, you're fucking looking for it. And it is indicative in humans. You are looking for this. And then what happens is you're not looking at the happy and the good. You're just you're remembering sad. I was sad then. That becomes a focal point. And it's all of these little things that I do, the positive affirmations and just trying to reward myself for achieving things is forcing me not to look at sad. And forcing me not to look at ill and mental illness. Do you see?
Yeah,
So,
I completely see. Very, very wise words. I mean, amazing insight. I mean, as far as I'd ever got down that route was this idea that everybody has to be happy. That's the point of life, to be happy. I mean, it's quite a nice part of life, but to the exclusion of all else, like other people must be happy. Nothing ever goes wrong, and actually part of that happiness is being able to deal with the stuff that goes wrong and overcome stuff. Life will have things to overcome and deal with, good, bad, terrible, irrelevant, all this kind of stuff. And that's normal. And you will be upset. You will be unhappy. And you may get put into boxes or whatever, but it's all part of this melting pot of your however many years you're on the planet for. And you can overcome this stuff. Actually,
of course
ultimately,
you can. Of course you can.
It's how you deal with it. But I can completely imagine if part of that is someone coming along and saying, right, you have a mental illness. It's like a chemical thing or a genetic thing or whatever. You are now in this. I will now be convinced that I am.
This
ill,
is what I am. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, this is what I am. I mean, if somebody tells you you're a dickhead every day for a week, you'll probably be like, shut up. Two people start calling you a dickhead every day for a month. You start to believe it. and that's essentially what you do to yourself. And what's most interesting is, I mean, we haven't spent much time together, Dom, and I don't know you that well, but from what I do know about you, you're one of those people that gets quite obsessed about things. And you'll suddenly go, bang, tunnel vision, that's all I'm looking at for however long I get interested by it. I mean, you could tell from your studio and your setup. Do you know what I mean? And it feels to me like you've got a natural ability, which you've got no idea about, where, if there is a bad situation, you're like, oh yeah, it's a bad situation, but I need to wire up my synth over there.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And then suddenly oh no, the MIDI clock isn't working. Oh, do you know what I mean? Something terrible's happening out there, but no, the MIDI clock isn't working. That's what I'm dealing with. Do you know?
Absolutely. And in some ways, I have quite a luxurious life at this time in my life, because I do have enough cash to live off. I do have a nice family, and we all get on, and it's very supportive to be able to go, actually, do you know what? I can leave that out there for now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But you can train yourself to be like that a little bit. And my, one of the greatest gifts I've had as a human is my love for music and being distracted by music. Because when things are bad, if I can just drag myself to something musical, then I'm there. And this is the benefit to having hobbies and things you're passionate about. And finding those, just finding a passion or finding something you really want to do is fucking massive. And, there's some people out there that, some people have called me talented. I'm not, I would never call myself talented. What I would say is I like doing things, and when I do them a lot, and I get semi good at them. But that's because I find things I like, and I was lucky enough to find music and do that. And a lot of people out there, they don't have that, and and their hobbies either aren't as obvious. You have to really search them out, or their hobbies are knitting. Knitting's a good hobby. But, you're not going to get a load of people going, oh, that's amazing. You're not going to be able to put your knitting up on Facebook and have, have people go, oh, that's really good. Or you're not going to get booked to go and do knitting. So you're not really going to get the external gratification that I think is so important to me, especially when I do artistic things.
In this, exactly. And many in the artistic realm. It's interesting. I mean, I don't want to switch it to me, but you did mention me just briefly. I mean, I took a purposeful decision. I had a lot of success in 95, 96, 97 with writing massive hit record.
I told Melissa about that. She was like, what?
What?
I was like, yeah, that's Dom's song. It's on an advert. No, it's coming up to Christmas, isn't it? When you make all the bank, Dom. Yeah. And I was like, oh, Dom wrote that. She was like, what?
I was lucky enough to write a big song for E17. It was number one, but I wrote a lot of songs on the albums, and it just exploded. And I was there. I've done that kind of heard the postman walk up my drive, my path at the time, and whistling my song. I've done that thing, and it was amazing. And then I was really, really worried after that because, for one, like the phone didn't actually ring off the hook. You still had to go out and hassle for work and everything, which is why I kind of expected everyone to ring me up and say, "Can you come and sprinkle some of your magic on our new artist?" But that's fine. I've been hassling all my life. But I suddenly realised that I probably would never do anything as successful I was very satisfied and happy with it, again. And that was a frightening thought. And I know this is like to have that worry, right? But it really was. And I purposefully stepped out of music and I did something else because I thought I can spend the rest of my life trying to recreate this or do it better. And I've seen so many artists fronting the bands, spending their entire lives trying to get that number one again, that band included, actually. But I had to stop. I literally had to step aside and go, otherwise I'm just going to drive myself nuts,
Well,
I always want to do things better.
But, it's all relative, isn't it? That fear is relative, and it shows how susceptible you can be, with all that success you had, everything going on, and you've still got fears in the back of your head.
Oh, gosh, yeah. The thought of trying to do it again that would be my normal thing. I've got to do it better. I've always got to do it better. There's always a way of doing it. As long as there's no limit to my ceiling on what I'm doing, I'm really happy doing it. Whether it's MIDI clocks or writing songs or whatever it might be, that gets me excited. But I just thought, you know what? It's really, you do need an element of luck in music as well as everything else. And I think I've used up my luck. I don't know if this is going to be going to happen again. And it was good. It was good. I kept my sanity. I was okay, you know, and I can come back to it now and do this stuff, and I can talk about it and teach music to people and talk on Sonic State and still put music out, and it's good. It's a nice place to be. But yeah, I think everyone at whatever level is going to be affected in some way. Just the person you think is everything's going so perfectly for is often the person who's going back home and going, "Oh, geez, I don't know how to deal with this." You know,
of course. I mean, you know, it's an interesting thought. You know, what do you call success? That's the most interesting thing. What is success? When you start to ponder that, you're kind of thinking, you know, for me, I don't know, success is just being happy every day, and what else comes with that is good enough. You know, I've never been sort of I've never been rewarded by money. I've never chased money, and recently I've had to start looking at money and going, well, for me to do well, I've got to try and like money a little bit more, because I hate it and I hate everything it brings with it, and I hate the troubles and responsibilities that come with it.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm starting to deal with money a little bit better, and it was a big stumbling point for me and a big stress for me, because I just couldn't understand why everybody wanted it. You know, all this stuff that money brings you is an irrelevance to me. The stuff I like, you know, is like a 300 quid Vestax. I've spent 40 quid on a PMC05 Pro mixer that I've got fixed that's broken, and I'm like, yes, it turned up today. Do you know what I mean? So I don't understand the cars or the big houses. You know, me and Melissa, we live in a little 2 up, 2 down, and you know that's good for me. But you know, it kind of leads you to thinking. You know, you can set your ceiling for what you believe is success, and you can spend a lot of time looking at other people. You know, looking at the Joneses, going, oh, they've got this, they've got that. But every time you're looking at somebody else going, they've got that, they've got this, you're not thinking, what do I want?
Exactly. The relativism, if that's a word, between the two, is kind of wrong. It's like it's about, like, you know, selling when people were selling timeshares in the 80s, and people were putting all this money down, and they would upgrade their timeshares for the timeshare on the corner with a slightly bigger balcony or whatever, you know, and you're looking at the whole thing going, that's horrible. The whole thing is horrible, but you're in it. You know, and you're competing at that level. It's a very interesting take. I think success, or what you want out of life, maybe changes when you have children. I mean, it certainly did for me when Luna May came along, and we had Luna May later in our lives, and your perspectives definitely switched. So success for me is to have a happy, healthy family, whereas I was very self-centered until, you know, she came along, until I met my wife, you know, and that's why I was just, people are, you know, just headlong into music and then into work for a while. But you know, it's, if you don't achieve what you want out of all that work, I think that's hard to take, you know, because hard work and good work doesn't necessarily equate to success in any way whatsoever.
I mean, an even more interesting thing is, you know, you don't know what you want when you're a kid. And you're kind of supposed to know what you want when you finish your GCSEs. You know, it's time to work. You know, you've got to go into higher education, or you've got to get a job. You've got to train. You've never done these jobs. You've got no understanding of what these jobs are. So you're kind of thrust after school into a world of, you're supposed to know what you want, do it, and then you look around going, that looks good. I want that. Why do I want that? Oh, well, that person's doing this, and I like that. So then you're kind of getting that mindset of, look at them, that's what I want,
isn't it? It's a massive decision, which can be exactly like you say. It's like, oh yeah, that looks like marine. I like dolphins. I'm going to be a marine biologist. You know, whatever it might be. It's
I want to be a farmer, and then you realise when you've done the training, you spend half your time with your hand up a cow's ass. Do you know what I mean? But that's kind of life, isn't it? That is kind of life. But you know, it's again, it's like reprogramming yourself to not look, because you're trained to look over there, look at stuff. What do you want? I want that. I want what that person's got. I want that. And then it carries on, and then every time you're going, I want that because that person's got it, or that person's life looks good, I want that. You're not asking yourself, what do I want? What do I actually want? When I look at the world, what actually makes me? Do you know what I mean? You're looking at, the big car. Like, everybody's looking at the big car. It's a big car. It looked good in the drive. But it's like, okay, yeah, but why, apart from it being a good car, being in the drive and going fast, 60 miles an hour speed limit, in a fucking 300 horsepower car. I mean, really, if you like that, it's good, of course. But if you really like that, then you'll have it and you'll enjoy it. But if you're looking at that going, I want that because of this, because he's got it, you're never going to get there. And it's the hardest thing to do in life, is find actually what you want and understand what you want. And it's only really been recently that I've got to that point and I'm doing something I want to do.
That's amazing, though. That's really amazing, because I don't think some people ever get to that point until they're much, much older, look back on life and go, hey, do you know what, these were the times I was truly happy. And you know, it was that holiday I had, or that moment I had, or that smell that I experienced, or that meal, not the 40 years that I worked for whoever it was. You know, they don't realise until then. But then
it's not necessarily to do with work either, is it? It's sort of, you know, there are things you have to do in life, and this is applicable to depression as well. There are things you have to do when you're depressed to deal with that depression, and you have to lead a large part of your life either uncomfortable, not liking what you're doing, or in uncomfortable situations you don't want to be in. But it's about stealing those moments you can steal, and having those really nice, blessed moments. And you know, if you can just start to set yourself up to chase that. I mean, VK, she loves swimming in rivers. I mean, how'd you come across that? But she did. And
I saw a picture and it was like, what?
Yeah, she really, do you know what I mean? She struggles, but she found swimming in fucking rivers. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought? She's also a talented DJ. She loves DJing, but you know, the swimming in rivers is a real thing for her. You know, so if you're able to go out there and just try new stuff, then it's good. The resource it's going to give you, and the stealing that little part of your brain that isn't taken up by anybody else, any responsibilities. Just trying to find that little place and let that place grow inside your head. But, you know, before you do that, you've got to actually allow yourself the time, and you've got to cognitively go, I'm going to find that little space of happiness.
Absolutely. And when you're talking, like you're talking about the new car or the big house or whatever, a lot of that stuff is short-term kind of endorphins as well. It's a thing that it just wears off. You know, yes, I'd like the biggest new DJ setup, or I'd like the big car or whatever.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
You know, you know, 2 months later, it's just the car again, and it begins to break down or whatever. You know, it's a great thing. It's a wonderful, you know, to not have to worry about money potentially, or to be able to afford that stuff or whatever. But it's not the answer. It really isn't the answer. So many people that you see winning the lottery end up completely depressed because they've pushed all those buttons, they've bought all that stuff, they've been very affluent, and it hasn't actually.
Well, it's the same as a drug addiction, isn't it? It's the same as a drug addiction.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You're putting a drug in your system that enhances your endorphins and gives you the dopamine hit that you'd normally get from something you did that required effort, and your body would normally go, you did this, here's your reward, and there's your reward. You know, I spent a long time going, I want drugs. That's all I want is drugs. Give me drugs. I get drugs. Do the drugs. More drugs, please. Can I have some more drugs? Yeah, more drugs. That's all I want is drugs. Drugs. And I got it every time, and it didn't make me happier. And, you know, when you're chasing something that doesn't make you happy, or you're doing something that isn't gonna achieve an end goal that's gonna make you happy, then you're gonna live an empty life.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is where this little happy place in your head you need to build will start to guide you. And every time you go there, you will be able to like, oh no, actually I did go for the walk down the lane with that really nice hill. That when I look at that hill, it's nice. But I don't know why it's nice, but I look at the hill and it's a good hill. You know, do that, you know, try and do that more. Make sure you do that sort of thing more. It doesn't matter what it is. Do you know what I mean? It's just finding those little bits, I think.
Totally.
Especially when you're depressed.
Let's do a quick recap on the chat, because we're running to the end of the hour. It's not the conversation I quite expected, but it's been really good to talk about this stuff. Rewinding quite a way back, David Ramirez is saying it's how he's approaching his alcoholism. I will always be an alcoholic, and I'm learning to live with it day by day. This is back when we were talking about coming to terms and just getting used to the way that you're dealing with it, and the fact that it's not going to go away. Even if you stop drinking, you're still an alcoholic. Let's see. Matt Evans, my lady had cancer last year. Luckily, it was caught and cured. Then a few weeks ago, her dad was given terminal lung cancer diagnosis. She's reeling from it. I'm so sorry, Matt. Man, I think Matt has said that he would be very happy to come on and talk about this stuff as well, which would be really amazing.
Brilliant.
Henky Giraffe, hello to you. Oddly, when my dad died, I felt nothing. It's been almost 2 years and it's still like that. That's one I'm going to have to figure out.
Well, I'll tell you what that is. You're feeling nothing because you're pushing your feelings down. You know, the reason why you're feeling nothing is because you're cognitively going, I can't deal with this. I refuse to deal with this. What's the easiest thing to do? Feel nothing. And you'll be numb. And you need to go somewhere and you need to open up. And that'll be the start to it, because all of this nothing you're feeling is gonna you will notice you're more anxious, you're more grumpy, you haven't got much energy, you're not getting the goodness of life, because you're in safe mode. If you know what that is, if you've ever had a Windows set up, you're in safe mode. You're in safe mode, and being able to write that is the first step to admitting it. I'm not sure if you've actually verbally said this, but you've written it down and it's on a screen now. And if you're looking at that, there's your first step.
Cool. Half God, half beast. I had Zoom therapy when my dad was dying 2 years ago. It really helped me get through it. Just needed the outlet at the time. Well, that's cool. That's the online therapy that we were talking about. And Zone magazine takes about 6 to 8 sessions before you build a good rapport with your counsellors. We're saying about getting used to the person that's counselling you. That's quite a lot, actually. But
I think it can depend, because it depends how open you're willing to be and how trusting you're going to be, because it is a difficult thing to do, and obviously you're going to be very protective over your feelings, and you want to trust that because trust is a big thing between humans. So the trust is built there. When I was in rehab, I was lucky enough because I dealt with the person before, so I just opened up straight away, and I was just like, I'm stuck in this house full of junkies. I've just got to fucking do it, haven't I? There's only one way to do it. But yeah, I mean, I think 6 to 8 sessions would be before you build a good rapport, but that doesn't mean that good isn't going to be happening within those 1 to 6, 1 to 5, 1 to 7. It doesn't mean you're not going to be sort of making breakthroughs and understanding things before that.
Yep. David Serchek saying, I'm not sure I've recovered from Dad's death, if I'm honest. I just let the years pass. Well, that's again pushing your feelings down. I'm sure that's true for a lot of people as well. Yeah.
I mean, I still feel like that, and I've dealt with it to a certain extent.
Wagyu, when my grandfather died, I went to see the body, and I decided not to do that with Mum. I wanted to keep alive the feeling that she could walk in the door at any moment. I'm not sure I'd want to see my parents. My father's passed, but my mother is obviously still with us.
Well, my mum got this is a terrible story, but I'm going to tell it.
Okay, brace yourself, everybody.
My mum got what was it when they crematorium? My mum got cremated, and my mum was Christian before she died, because the reason she was Christian is because she thought if there's a heaven, then apparently if you believe in God, then all your children will go to heaven because you believed. So that gave her the strength to push on. All she wanted to know was that we were going to be fine after she passed. So we went to the we did the ceremony. She was cremated, so there was no body there. But after that, we put her ashes in the river. And they were singing their Christian prayers and stuff, and I was just sat on the boat, like withdrawing from heroin or whatever drug I was on, like white fucking leather jacket on the boat, and it's fucking terrible. And they chucked the ashes into the river, and there was a breeze, and the ashes came up and went in my mouth. Oh, no. There's some symbolism there. They fucking woke me up. I was getting pissy because they were singing their fucking Christian songs. And I was getting more and more fucking annoyed because in my mind they'd stolen my mum from me because they were doing all the Christian stuff. And then suddenly they gave her back, and I was like, okay, yeah, stop being a
Oh my gosh. What did you do?
I did. I've never told anybody this. I'm not sure even if any of my family members are watching this, they now know, but I said nothing about it. I was just. Well, I mean, what do you do?
Oh my gosh, that's one for the book. My goodness me. Oh.
See, I don't know if stupid stuff just happens to me or I just remember it.
My mum did tell me about the time they went to an elderly aunt's funeral, my stepdad's elderly aunt's funeral, and this is absolutely true. It was my folks were there. It wasn't a story from one of their friends. It was another cremation, and I don't know if it's a vicar or whoever the officer of the cremation or the court was there, and he was an older guy, and he fainted, and he fell on the button. And, and the thing went down. So the service hadn't even started.
No.
Literally. It was just at the beginning. And this guy, he looked really kind of white, and he fell on the button, and the coffin went down into the crematorium bit, and that was the end of the ceremony. That was it.
No, that was it. Done.
That was
it. So there's somebody in the chat here I've just seen, and they had a similar experience of when their granddad was cremated. Oh, there we go. Wagyu.
I had a similar thing with my grandfather. Wanted to be scattered on a field. Was a windy day. The vicar got most of him all over my trousers.
It fucking happens. Scouring ashes is a dangerous game.
Paul, I'll tell you, I'm sure there's a club for folk who've been ashed. Oh my gosh.
See, you don't know about it until it happens to you. How sad's that? It's a very sad thing.
Oh my word. There are Matt Evans, also Zone Magazine, have both, and Pierre the Acid Clown, Mark Gardner, have all said that they would be very happy to come on and talk about this stuff. So that's brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
There was a message I caught as well in the chat, and I believe is the giraffe. I can't remember the name.
Henky Giraffe.
Henky Giraffe. So they said that. Here we go.
Is that the one about?
Oh no!
I think it would be a different thing.
It was a different one, but basically they were saying they want to get themselves off. They want to deal with their drug issue before they go into therapy.
Yes. Okay.
Now,
so
I would say the two work very closely together.
Yeah.
I mean, they say so. There's a sort of stigma, and it's a reason I didn't go into AA or anything before. Is that I always thought you had to be sober to go into an AA meeting, and it's not true. Therapy works better when you're sober, but there needs to be a starting point.
Okay, and that makes sense. Actually, I didn't know that either. I thought you literally had to stop and then you go in and
no.
Well done.
You go in there and there's people off their face, but they're in there and they're trying to make their first step. And there's the badge they give out where you get your 1-day badge. And most of the junkies and alcoholics that go in there have got hundreds of 1-day badges. Because they've done 24 hours. They go to the meeting, they drink after the meeting, and they're back again next Wednesday. They have their 24-hour badge. But you can go there. You can go there for support in whatever situation you're in. And I would highly advise, is it Hinky Giraffe?
Henky
Giraffe. Go to an AA or NA meeting and just go in there. Because they've got all the fucking resources. They know every person in there. You know, it's probably been in 7 rehabs. You know, they've relapsed loads of times, but they'll have all the places to go. And you know, don't wait to get therapy or counselling. Speak to these people. Tell them I've got a drug addiction. I'm active in addiction at the moment, and I need to do this work on myself. But I'm addicted. But I fucking guarantee you're using based on the death.
Yeah.
And until you deal with that death, you won't stop using.
Okay, so also planning to get counselling, but I need to take some other steps first, which was then followed by, indeed, the plan is to tackle my addictions first, so that I am fit for counselling. And you're dead right. This is a dual process, not.
It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing, and it's like, and again with addiction, and as I know personally, and I still do this in my life, I put little things in place to stop myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you stop yourself making those steps, but then they're saying that you know they're already in the process, which is brilliant. So, I could be wrong in this situation, but for anybody else that's not going into those services because of that, really, really think about that.
It's back to the, I was going to go and get help tomorrow, but it shuts at 11:30 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And I might not wake up. It's the usual kind of thing. Wow. Well, what a thing. We're way over. We've done an hour and a half nearly, which is brilliant.
Oh, bloody hell.
Which is half an hour more than we were going to do, but it's been really good talking, actually. And what's amazing is that some people are going to come on and talk about their own stuff, which I think is going to really open up the chat a lot, which is going to be really good. So thank you for that. If you're listening after the show on repeat or whatever, please just drop us a line. dom@mrwiggly.co.uk if you can't get in touch with any of us via Facebook. So Delta Oscar Mike, DOM@mrwiggly, mrwiggly.co.uk will get in touch with me. And if you fancy coming on, you would be very, very welcome. And like Oliver said, just tell us what you want to talk about and what you don't want to talk about. And we just won't touch it. And, we're just interested in hearing about you, not asking deep questions about what's going on there. So that would be amazing if you do want to come and talk about that. Culture of Ghosts says, nice show, Dom. Great to see you back on form. Yes, it is nice to see you back on form with that grey
I'm not on form. I'm not on form. I feel fucking terrible.
Oh, Henke as well says, with all due respect, I'll stick to my plan, keep the other options in the back of my mind if this doesn't work. That's absolutely
fine. Definitely. I'm only giving advice from my personal perspective, and it's not right for everybody. But I wouldn't be honest to this show, and I wouldn't be honest to myself if I didn't tell you what I thought about that matter. And I know for a fact, Henke, that what I've said you've taken on board, and like you said, you're going to put it on the back burner. And if what you're doing now doesn't work, try my method. If that doesn't, there'll be loads of other people that can help you out. But it's just about sharing personal opinions. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong here.
100%. And to do stick around, it's great to have you in the chat. You've offered a lot of insight as well in previous shows as well. So thank you very much, everybody. We will be here this same time next week, 9:00 on Wednesday, which will be Wednesday the 16th, I think. And we'll try and put some bits and pieces up with whether it's Mark coming on or whoever's going to come on next week. We'll try and do a bit more advertising. But if you do have anybody that you think would enjoy or benefit from or find it interesting to watch the show, please spread the word, and we can try and build up the numbers a little bit more and get the word out. Because there's nothing better than personal recommendations, to be honest. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Ollie.
Lovely.
What you up to? Anything exciting, or is it time for bed in a minute?
I'm going to bed. if I can sleep. So
we'll
see.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone in the chat. Big respect to you all. Thank you to Ollie. Thank you to everyone who's taken part. And we will see you all again next week. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.
Urbanist connect so with the herb pipe, link up the harmonize, left the termite, but beyond obsolete blessings are birthright. We live a life which a la forming us out worldwide. Cosmic love energy, I go herbicide free, organically, me say worthwhile. Watch the way one of you termites in terms of definitions and long termites. Yes, I check the eye. One side is defined by one side the other. I.e. I am an ideas man. I assign too much of the qualities of my guy. Who's free if I'm talking like this? Two of me. One is a construct, one is a creativity. The supreme one, all encompassing information in and of itself, most definitely. Another life energy, most life energy. Beyond the scripture, niceness can be. Blessed be. I continually, Mr. Pick up a being, that's the infinity. Yes,